Liesel, I'm telling you, like it felt like just this crazy release
Oh.
and her head came out.
Oh.
Her head came out. And mind you, like we have this affiliate or whatever nurse who's like
Oh
learning
God, I
and
feel so bad
Justin
for her.
and me. And I'm like, something's happening. And I reached down, but that was like honestly the most beautiful moment of my entire life. I just
Oh.
reached down, I could feel her head.
You're listening to the Mommy Labor Nurse Podcast, where we firmly believe in the power of education when it comes to giving birth. Tune in each week as we dive into pregnancy-related topics, expert interviews, and a variety of birth stories. As a reminder, anything you hear on this podcast is not medical advice. Please see mommylabornurse.com/disclaimer for more details. And now here's your host, educator, registered nurse, and fellow mom, Liesel Teen.
Hi guys, happy Monday. So this week I have a birth story for you guys. I haven't put out a birth story episode in a while and I'm sorry. But I have a birth story this week. I have Kim Perry on the podcast. And if you guys don't follow Kim Perry, you should. She's a pretty cool lady. And Kim came on to the podcast today because Kim so she's got 3 girls and her youngest is about the same age as Ryland. I think Blake is a little bit older. But her youngest, her third daughter, she took one of my birth courses with her. And she came on just to talk about her third birth and her first two too. But I wanted to have her on because she had a pretty crazy birth with her third baby. So I wanted to hear about that. And I also wanted to hear, after she had taken my course, if she found it beneficial. So Kim Perry is an entrepreneur. She's a fit pregnancy coach, mom of 3, and strong believer that new and expecting moms can be both fit and happy. Her life didn't always look this way. During her first pregnancy, she had no idea what to expect. Her body was changing, and she just didn't feel like herself anymore. The only thing that made her feel like herself was movement. Exercise always left her feeling strong and in control. After becoming pre- and postnatal certified, she began to share her workouts online and slowly built a close-knit community. She went from recording and editing videos in her basement at 5 a.m. before work to eventually quitting her full-time teaching job. She realized that helping other moms was incredibly fun and fulfilling, and it became her dream job. So yeah, she does just that on her Instagram. Like I said, I've been following her for a little while, and I just love to see her stories because I think she's super inspiring, just what she's doing. So yeah, without further ado, let's hear from Miss Kim Perry about her births. Wondering what you need to do to stay on track during each week of pregnancy? Not sure what you need to be learning or researching along the way? I can help. Sign up for our free weekly pregnancy series to get tips, advice, and resources tailored to your exact week of pregnancy sent straight to your inbox every week. Sign up at mommylabornurse.com/IamPregnant to get your first email today. See you in your inbox real soon. Hi, Kim. Welcome to the Mommy Labor Nurse Podcast. Thank you so much for being here today.
Liesel, thank you so much for having me. I feel like I'm a super fan of you. Longtime follower.
Yay.
So I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. Well, we were just chatting before the episode. I've been following you for a while too. So you tell our listeners who you are and what you do on Instagram.
My name is Kim and I'm a mom to 3 little girls. My oldest is 4.5. So I feel like for the last 5 years, I've been pregnant or breastfeeding the entire time. But yeah, during my second pregnancy is when I'm a fit pregnancy coach, but I really didn't find that field until my second pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
My first time around, I was really frustrated with like the workouts and all these restrictions and don't do this and don't touch that. And you have to do this. And it was I wasn't able to do what I truly enjoyed, or at least I didn't think I was. So my second pregnancy, I kind of got really into it. I was doing a lot of my own research. I actually got certified in pre-postnatal fitness, and that's where I started sharing my workouts. And then I created also a postpartum workout program that I am still doing today. And then I just recently had my third baby, who is the same age as your little one.
Yeah.
And we were pregnant together. And I
Yeah.
actually so I know it was my third birth, but between COVID and just not even having the time to like go to the doctor's office and take like a prenatal course.
Yeah.
I needed a refresher. And I also wanted my third birth to be different. And boy, was it different.
Yeah. Well, don't spoil anything.
Okay,
We're going to get into all of it. But yeah, I think that's amazing that you recognize that and you wanted to take some courses, and obviously you chose ours. So we're really happy about that.
So I didn't say too much about what I do, but I do help, or my goal is to help moms stay fit during and after pregnancy, and also provide those helpful resources that are going to give them energy, help them feel good, prepare their bodies for labor, and then fuel themselves for motherhood.
Yeah. I love it. Well, I love your little workout videos that you share. I just think it's no wonder you have a lot of Instagram followers. Like they just are great visually. They're very easy to follow. So
thank you.
I appreciate them. All right, Kim. So we are going to talk about birth stories today. So usually what I do with most people is I have them kind of start from the beginning. So if you want to start with your oldest, with your 4.5-year-old, and kind of, I want you, if you're willing to share, not how you got pregnant. We all know how people get pregnant, but if you had any issues with getting pregnant with her, had any losses, or just kind of how that started. And then we can talk about her birth, and then we can talk about your second one, and then we can talk about your most recent one.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay. So when we talk about like fertility, I always have this like guilt in the fact that I didn't have trouble getting pregnant. And I know so many of my close friends and family have. So I didn't have trouble the first time. And it was surprising though, because my cycle is very irregular. Like
really,
if I had really tried and like counted the days, like it would have been, I don't know. It was just so irregular. So the fact that we got pregnant, we felt like it was a miracle.
Yeah.
But like I started saying, my pregnancy with Ayla was not fun. Like I didn't like my body's changes. Like I feel like the first pregnancy is tough on the body because it is so new and your body has never felt this way before. So it was a lot of symptoms. I had the morning sickness, like not even morning sickness. I had nausea like the entire pregnancy, food aversions. Yeah. I kept saying like, this will be my only pregnancy. I'm never getting pregnant again.
Yeah.
I did not like it.
And that's okay. And that's, I mean, there are people who love being pregnant, and then there are people who don't like being pregnant, and there's nothing wrong with not liking pregnancy, even if you have fertility issues. Like that's a big thing that I see people have a lot of guilt with. It's like, it took me so long to get pregnant, and now I just hate pregnancy, and I feel all this guilt because of it. But yeah, it's certainly, pregnancy is hard and it is okay not to like it.
Yes, I agree. And I can remember like people telling me like, oh, I miss being pregnant. And I was like, oh, like, yeah, right. You clearly don't remember this part. So it was long. But it was nice because at the time I was a teacher and I had the whole summer off and I was due the end of July. So I was going to go right into my maternity leave, the beginning of the school year. Yeah. And I had like that whole, like, third trimester basically off, and it was summertime. And so that I do appreciate. And then for preparation, like I really was just the only person I knew who had, had babies and I got to see up close was my sister. And she, God bless her, totally hid like how challenging, like she just made everything look so easy. Mm-hmm. She was like a silent laborer. And I was in the room both times. She didn't make a single sound. Silence. And you could see her face, like she looked uncomfortable, but like, she totally tricked me because my labor with Ayla, no, it was very different. But like I said, like all between seeing her 2 births and then I took, the one class at the hospital. I don't think that's enough preparation. Like I really just did the bare minimum. So when it came to giving birth, I was at home in labor for about 12 hours, like from like 10 o'clock at night. I labored all night. I couldn't sleep because of the contractions, but I was like, this is okay. I know it's not time yet. Tried to get a little bit of rest. And then it was like noontime that I think I went in, maybe before then. I was like, yeah, it's time. We gotta go. Still labored. And I tried to do the tub for a little bit, but that just wasn't working. I did, however, have a doula who was so phenomenal. And I cannot recommend a doula enough if you have access to one.
Yeah.
And it's funny. She's actually my first grade teacher.
Oh,
so I know. What are the chances? Yeah. My mom actually used to volunteer in the classroom with her when she would teach us. And now she's a volunteer doula. So it's like the whole, everything came together. I don't know what it's called, but yeah. So it was kind of cool. She was just so perfect at her job. And she said, and which I didn't realize at the time, that I was doing a great job with just my breathing through the contractions. Cause that's one thing I learned I watched in a YouTube video actually from a girl that I followed on Instagram. And she was like, don't fight the contraction. Like, don't tense up. You have to breathe through it and allow and relax. So like, nobody taught me that except for this girl in the YouTube video.
Yeah, it's not something you learned in the hospital class.
Right. They don't tell you. I mean, my doula helped with that, but yeah. So I was doing a good job with that, but the labor was just not like, I wasn't progressing quick enough. So I got an epidural, which worked for 15 minutes, I think. And then I was like, this isn't working. We need to fix this. So they gave me like another dose. Still wasn't working. And they're like, listen, your only option is to take it all out and do another one.
Oh,
yeah. And I was like, well, let's do it. Make it happen. And by that time, I think like the epidural, even though it was like not long lasting, it did help my body relax enough to dilate more. So I think I went from like 4 to like 7. I can't remember the exact numbers. This was a long time ago, but
no, it's okay. I'm like, I wrote down Walter is about the same age. He's 4. And I wrote down, my birth story with him, but it's like, when I think about, I have to like go back and look at those notes and refresh my memory. Cause it's like, God, 4 years ago, that's a long, I don't remember.
Yeah. Can I tell you, I wrote down this labor because I wanted to remind myself how challenging it was. Yeah. And I'm not going to lie, like it was traumatic. Like I had gone all that long. So now I also my contractions had started like the day before at a doctor's appointment before I considered them like actually starting.
Yeah.
So I was like having contractions for 2 days, and now it's like another 12 hours of like no relief. Second epidural, nothing is working. Oh. Yeah. And I was on my back the entire time, which now I know I had the epidural, so you kind of have not a lot of options there, but yeah, I was in a lot of pain. I had those crazy surges that it just felt like there was no relief. So it was long. And then I only pushed for 15 minutes, which is thank God, but after she came out, like I was still experiencing so much pain. I was like, when is it going to end? Like, I'm still in pain. And like, she came out and I wasn't like happy. I was like crying. Like, it was sad. And I remember like my mom came in the delivery room, or they were all in there at the time. But then when I was like it was just so bad. I told my husband, like, they need to leave, but I didn't want my mom to leave, but I couldn't even voice that to him. So my mom, my sister, everyone was like out of the room. But when they came back in, I just remember I was like crying, and I felt like, where's my moment where they put the baby on your chest and you're just like, oh, it's so magical. I was like, this is not magical. So I think I had that like anger about my expectations not being met, or, just this, what I had envisioned for my birth, and it didn't happen. So it was not the best experience. And this is also something I wish I had learned about, is just the trauma that comes with that. Do Do you teach that? I mean, I can't remember in your course. I
Yeah.
think you did touch on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's kind of why we do all of our classes, is to prepare people for as many different scenarios as what, we talk about how epidurals sometimes don't work. So expect this, that, and the other. And that helps certainly to decrease the amount of trauma that people experience. But yeah, I mean, it's very similar. The whole time you're talking, I'm thinking about my second birth with Rylan, and that's, I didn't experience like no pain and then still having pain. It wasn't like that, but I remember having that like, oh my God, I'm so happy I gave birth, while they put the baby on on your chest, and you're just like, I feel so great after my first one with Walter. But my second one, it's like his heart rate was dipping at the end, and I was like scared that he was going to come out, not, breathe. And then he was fine, came out, but his labor just went not as, it was just different, and I stalled at the end, and I was just mad that I was so it was like, I didn't have, and people don't talk about as much where, like, people don't talk about how that can happen. Like, we only hear the positive, like, people, you're going to put it's going to be over, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, I think that my second birth really taught me. I mean, I knew that people experience that, of course, but personally, I felt that very similar feeling that you felt, where it's not, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. So
there's like an emotional component to giving birth. So that one was my toughest. And so that was Ayla.
Yeah.
And then we did want to have our girls pretty close in age. I'm one of 3 girls as well. And my older sister and I are only 13 months apart. And
wow.
Looking back, I'm like, wow, that's a little close to be pregnant by like your child's 4 months old. It's like, I can't imagine that now. But so when Ayla was about 1, like just after she turned 1, we got pregnant again. And then I didn't have, for some reason, my doctor's office wasn't able to get me in. I had the ultrasound to see. It was like, he was like measuring 6-7 weeks. And then I didn't have that appointment that's supposed to be at like 10 weeks, I want to say, maybe 12.
Yeah.
It was scheduled for like 14 weeks. And right before my appointment, I started spotting and I had a miscarriage. And I had friends that had that happen to them, and I felt bad, but you don't understand like loss until you've experienced it. So part of me, like, obviously it was disappointing. Like, we had all these expectations. The baby was going to be due at the end of the school year. I was still teaching at the time. My friend had the same due date. So that was really hard, like watching her be pregnant. But like I was going to say is that I am glad that I'm glad that it happened, but like it gave me such a bigger perspective, and I have more empathy for the women who are struggling with fertility or who have had miscarriages or and I feel so much more grateful for the other pregnancies I have had because of that. It was definitely a learning experience. I've never felt so vulnerable. And then this is where I feel like slightly guilty again. I got pregnant, like almost immediately after the miscarriage. So,
common. That happens a lot because your body's, especially a later one, like it was, not super late, but it's not, you were probably 12 or 13 weeks.
Well, the baby had stopped growing around right after that ultrasound appointment. I just didn't know. And I didn't know that could happen. Like, I didn't know that your body just kept the baby in there for weeks. Like, I was like, when was it going to come? So crazy.
No, that happens. It's if you find it at the doctor or at your providers, it can be called a missed miscarriage, where you don't have any symptoms and they just find that, but it's not, it's definitely not, that happens all the time with, it's not like the baby passes away and then the next day your body expels the baby. It's honestly usually that way is either you find it at the provider, you find it at your providers, or you start having symptoms and they find that the baby has passed, a few weeks prior and your body has already kind of started the process. But yeah, not fun either way though. So,
yeah. But then with my third pregnancy, technically with Rosie, I want to say her pregnancy and birth were pretty textbook. Like I had some symptoms, but now my body's kind of more, I wasn't used to it, but it was more manageable because I knew what to expect. I knew what remedies worked for me. Both my pregnancies were pretty similar in terms of, I don't know, there really wasn't much difference except for I didn't have the nausea for the entire 9 months. Thank goodness.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Like, I just felt like I had a handle on things. I'm like, I've been here before. I know this, I got this. And like I said, I was so grateful to be pregnant and I had just had such a big appreciation for it. Yeah. Plus at the time I was like really educating myself on the pregnant body. So I had even better understanding. So I really liked my second pregnancy. And then the birth, we waited a little too long to go to the hospital because with my first, I was like, oh yeah, like, I was home like laboring for 12 hours before we went in, but it picked up so fast. And my father-in-law was supposed to come over and watch Ayla and he wasn't there. And I was like, we need to leave, get in the car. It was one of those like speeding to the hospital. I was 5 centimeters dilated when I got there.
Yeah.
And with Ayla, like I was only like, I think 1 or 2 centimeters, which is crazy. So I got an epidural. So in total, my third epidural, but this one worked right away and I could just relax. I kind of had like the shakes or like chills occasionally, but other than that, like my doula was there again. My mom and sister were there. So I had someone to video it because I didn't have any video of Ayla's birth. Like I didn't even have a picture until like she was 3 hours old. So that was like another like, not cool. So this time, like Rosie's was just great. Like I forgot to mention part of the birth with Ayla. I had an episiotomy, which I was not educated on. And the doctor didn't tell me they were performing it and just went ahead and did it. Yes, I know. And now I'm like, oh dear goodness, if I could go back. So anyways, that was my first. The second with Rosie, I pushed for 8 minutes and I did have a small tear, but I didn't want to have an episiotomy again. I was like, no, do not. So there's a small tear. I pushed for 8 minutes.
Wow.
The epidural worked. Felt fine. I had that like moment. I'm like, oh, she's here. Like, this is so beautiful. So much better experience second time around. And then, getting to introduce her to Ayla was just so fun. And that was
how was before we start talking about third one, how was your recoveries? Like, how were they different the first time around versus the second time around?
So that episiotomy I had, the stitches started like something. I was like, it hurts so bad. Like a few days later, I'm home. I thought I was like trying to do too much because with Ayla, I didn't find out the gender. And I had like a bunch of baby clothes, like some for boy, some for girl. And I was like, let me go through these bins. I'm like 2 days, like, 3 or 4 days postpartum. And I'm like walking up and downstairs carrying bins of baby clothes. Yeah. So
don't do that.
Don't do it. So I'm like, maybe I was doing too much, but like I am in so much pain. And I went to the doctors for one of our checkups. I think it was for Ayla's. And I was like, can you check me? Like, I am so uncomfortable. I was crying and there was some sort of infection in the stitches. So I had to go on an antibiotic.
Oh, yuck. And I was going to say, I wonder if you had an episiotomy performed and your epidural really wasn't working very well. I wonder if that's why you had so much darn pain after your birth and it didn't, with your first one and it didn't really go away. Right? Like that makes sense to me.
I also in the hospital, like I didn't understand, like you taught all of this in your course, which is why I recommended to all first time moms or second or whatever, just to be educated on this. Every time they came in with like medication to take, like, oh, time to take your ibuprofen, time to take your whatever. I didn't know you could say no. I just kept taking it and it made me feel so weird in the hospital. Like I felt like foggy. I know we're not getting much sleep, but I was like I felt like crap. And I really wish I knew of like other alternative pain relief methods, or just that you have the option not to take it, even, so I just wish I had that knowledge at the time.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people don't, a lot of people think, okay, I'm just going to, a lot of people, I remember even, one of my friends went through the court like very early pre-production. And I was like having my friends like go through the course and edit the course and like look at, okay, this sounds weird. And she doesn't have any kids. And she said that she was like, wow, something I really learned from your course was that like, I don't have to do what they say. Like I actually have a choice. And I'm like, really? Yeah. You didn't realize? Okay, that's good. And I'm like, people are learning that. So
we put all of our trust in the nurses and doctors, and we're like, just tell me what to do, when it's really it's the opposite. Like you're there to tell them what to do.
Right. In a respectful
to an extent,
course, right?
It sounded aggressive.
You don't want to like yell at them, but yeah, absolutely. You certainly have choices like in your pregnancy care, in your labor, in afterwards, in post. I mean, yes. You are the captain of the ship, really.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that baby crying means it's time for this week's segment of Birth It Up Babies. So this week I have a review. It was, how long ago? 13 weeks ago. It got sent by, I'm going to try and say her handle, but it's a little hard. S.McDevitt Solar. Okay, cool. So she says, I took your course because I knew nothing about labor except that it was supposed to hurt. I had an amazing experience. I took the epidural course and gained so much knowledge. I watched it with my husband and he knew exactly what I wanted during labor, and we had great communication because of your course. That is so cool. I was so thankful for you. I have recommended your course to so many people. Thank you for helping me have the best labor ever. Oh, that is so sweet. I just love these. I love that we're starting to do this segment. So if you want to find the course that she took, you can go to mommylabornurse.com and click on the epidural series and you can read all about it. All right, let's get right back into this week's episode. So let's talk about your third pregnancy. And I think, okay, I'm trying to do math. So how long was it you were pregnant with Rosie and then you got pregnant with Blake?
So it was right after or before Rosie's first birthday.
Okay. Gotcha.
So Rosie and Ayla are 2 years and 2 months apart.
Gotcha.
And then Rosie and Blake, my youngest, are 22 months apart. Yeah, less than 2 years. So gotcha. It was just before her birthday that I got pregnant, and we were trying, and it was so exciting, but it was so hard as a mom of two now, and I'm pregnant, and I barely had the energy to like take an announcement picture to be like, hey guys, I'm pregnant. I'm so tired. And
you had two little ones too. Yeah. I mean, it's not like your oldest was even, 4, like they were little.
She was 3. Yeah. She was 3. She's just like newly fully potty trained.
Yep.
She just got rid of the binky. So like young toddler still.
Yeah.
And then Rosie was 1. I had just I stopped breastfeeding her around 9 months, but still young kids. I ended up leaving my teaching job to do fit pregnancy coaching full time. So I'm home with them all the time, which I don't know which is worse, like getting to go to work and like even just have like a car ride alone to now I'm with them like all of the time, all around the clock. So it was pretty exhausting. And my third pregnancy is when I experienced anxiety. Like I started getting really bad, not anxiety attacks, but like I felt anxious and on edge a lot more. And I didn't realize that. And that's a thing. That's like pregnancy anxiety, or
certainly a thing. And a lot of times what happens is it gets thrown to the wayside because, you have all these questions naturally when you're pregnant and, it gets chalked up as, it's just hormone imbalance, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, that's definitely a thing. Prenatal anxiety and postnatal anxiety for sure.
So I'm dealing with all of that, trying to navigate it. And take care of myself, but also take care of my girls.
Yeah.
Same thing with this pregnancy, though. The symptoms were just like, I knew what to expect. I still had nausea. There was a few times where I would morning sickness was rough. And especially with the two little girls, like I remember one time I was like holding Rosie in the kitchen and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be sick.
Oh.
And because she was like crying and I threw up in the kitchen sink.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, I will never forget that. Like just hashtag mom life, pregnant. Mom
at least it
problem.
wasn't, at least you didn't get it on her or get it on the wall, I mean, that's a pretty good place to throw up in the kitchen. You can just kind of wash it down the drain.
Rinse it. Yeah. Okay. Moving on with the day. But then this pregnancy also was during COVID.
Yeah.
So it was a long winter that I was pregnant. I was anxious, had those first trimester symptoms. And now it's like, we're in lockdown. I can't go anywhere. We can't do anything. We can't see anybody. I can't bring my husband to appointments anymore. So I just felt like it was a long pregnancy with everything going on in the world. And but I was still having fun at home. Like I was having fun connecting with my community online and making workouts and just squeezing the most out of this pregnancy. Cause I was like, I don't know if this is gonna be my last, I don't know what life with 3 kids is going to be like, let alone 4 or 5. So I was like, you know what, we're just going to live it up. And I still enjoyed the pregnancy, even though the symptoms were kind of crazy. But as it got closer to not to my due date, but shortly after the lockdown stuff started happening, and I was hearing stories about what hospitals might be implementing to make it COVID safe, I was like, I'm going to look into a home birth because I want my husband to be by my side, and I want my doula who had been there 2 times. I want my mom. I want to have these choices, and I don't think I'll get them if I go to the hospital. So I actually called 8 different midwives, and I had no idea how much home births cost and what goes into it and the preparation. So I learned a lot, but I never pulled the trigger on working with any of them just because I don't know. It was so much change. And at this time I'm 26 weeks, 27, 28 weeks pregnant. And they're like, this is the cutoff. You have to make a choice. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm just going to do it in the hospital, but I'm going to take what I'm learning, what I'm reading between your course, the books I was reading Ina May's birthing guidebooks. And I was like, I'm going to just take the home birth experience and try to put it into the hospital as best as I can.
Yeah. And that's what I think a lot of people, try to do. I was going to say, I honestly did the same thing because of COVID. I remember being a little bit less pregnant, but when it first started, wondering oh my gosh, are the hospitals is it going to be really unsafe to go to the hospital because COVID is going to be just everywhere. And I'm like, do I need to really start, thinking about a home birth because it's not going to be, I did the same thing. Just really wondering, oh my gosh, is this going to be apocalyptic kind of situation? Right.
Oh yeah.
And luckily, it wasn't. Hospital is still a very safe place to give birth, but that's just good to show you, COVID was a crazy time in the early parts of it.
Yeah. And I know we were right along the same timeline with our pregnancies. So you were right there with me. Yeah. But since I wasn't going to have a doula, I was like, I have to learn how to doula. Yeah. I tried to teach Justin, he sat down with me. We watched the course together. He made note cards.
Nice.
Didn't use them. He didn't even know where they were in the hospital. Oh my gosh.
Well, he tried. He gave his best effort, right?
And plus I needed him next to me, doing the hip squeezes and all the partner support things. So he didn't even have a second to step away. Yeah. So this birth, I started going into labor. I had a couple not fault, my water never broke for any of them. They had the doctor broke it, or the nurse or somebody broke the water each time. So I did have one instance where I was I think I leaked a little bit, and I was I know for sure I didn't pee. I leaked, and I had these at home tests to you're supposed to get, it'll tell you if there's amniotic fluid, and it was negative, but still I was oh my gosh, this baby could come and it could happen really fast. And I forgot to mention this too. I went to 41 weeks with each of them.
So that's a whole nother can of work, like just a whole nother mental aspect of it, like being like overdue.
But then I hear about people that's like, oh, I went 41 weeks with my first, and then with my second, they were born 5 weeks early. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I can't imagine going early. Like I can't. So so Ayla was born exactly like 41 weeks. Rosie was 41 weeks in 1 day. And then Blake was 41 weeks, 2 days.
Wow. Your body's just like 41 weeks. That's where we're going to be pregnant.
Well, I tell people, I'm like, it's like, you know how you bake brownies and it's like bake for 22 to 27 minutes. Like I'm on the 27-minute end of that spectrum.
That is such a great way to put it. I love, okay, we're going to write this down. I'm going to do a brownie post on this and credit you.
Yes. Tag me and I will post that. But it's so true. Like every oven is different. Every pan you're using. So same thing with pregnancy. So yeah, we did. And I was having like some contractions. I also, for this third pregnancy, I was going to a prenatal chiropractor.
Yeah. And I did the same thing. And I love it. I love that. I love that lady.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Because I didn't realize like all those aches and pains and the backache and the pelvis and all of that is because your body is moving and shifting constantly and it's usually not in alignment. So if you go to a chiropractor who can just make really subtle adjustments, oh my gosh, I felt so much better. I was starting to go weekly towards the end. They were also doing stretches and alignment adjustments to help make birthing easier. Mm-hmm. So I think it was like this magical combination of me taking on like the doula role, learning more about birthing a baby, doing this chiropractic alignment. Like I was like ready to go.
Yeah.
So let's see, when I did start having contractions, it was like when Justin was home from work or he was like on his way home. I was like, I think it's happening now. I'm 41 weeks plus 2 days. Yeah. I was due on June 21st and now it's the last day of June. I'm about to have a July baby.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I know. I was like, okay, I wasn't ready for this. And with all three too, I had an induction date scheduled because my doctors are like, okay, well, if you go, let's just get a date on there. So same thing for this one. She was going to be like a July baby if she didn't come sooner. Yeah.
And before we get into the rest of this week's episode, let's hear a quick word from this week's sponsor. When you were trying to get pregnant, did you think ovulation day was your best chance each cycle? It's not. In fact, the best time to have sex is during the several days before you ovulate. You want to have sperm ready and waiting by the time that egg drops. So how can you make use of that full fertile window when you don't even know you're in it? This is where the Ava bracelet comes in. It's a sensor bracelet that detects subtle changes in your vital signs that correspond with the opening and closing of the fertile window. It was developed through years of rigorous scientific research that has been published in peer-reviewed medical journals. At Ava, we're not just creating a product, we're contributing meaningfully to the scientific understanding of the female body. That's why 20% from the sale of every Ava bracelet goes towards women's health research and development. The science is complex, but for you, it's easy. Just wear Ava while you sleep and sync to the app in the morning to see your 5 most fertile days as they're happening. Ava is better than LH tests, which only tell you the last day or two of your fertile window. It doesn't require taking your temperature or trying to decipher your cervical mucus. And it's more accurate than period tracker apps, which only guesstimate your fertility based on genetic averages. Plus, Ava's technology has been clinically tested and cleared by the FDA. So if you're trying to get pregnant, remember you've got more than just ovulation day to play with. Let Ava tell you your 5 best days to conceive. And right now, it's $20 off for Mommy Labor Nurse listeners. Just use the code MOMMY, MOMMY, at avawomen.com. And now let's get right back to this week's episode.
And I'm having contractions. My mom's over. And I'm bouncing on my ball and I'm like, okay, we should get ready to go. My husband takes out potatoes and onions and starts chopping them up and preheats the oven. I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm going to make the girls dinner before we leave. And I was like, and he's like, you need to eat too. And I'm like, okay, but roasting potatoes, you know how long this is going to take? So he makes his whole dinner. Meanwhile, I'm like just doing my breathing app. I downloaded the app, Freya by the
Ooh.
Positive Birth. I'll send it to you so you have it.
Yeah,
Have you heard of it?
No, I haven't. We'll link it. Yeah.
Yeah. So they have an Instagram page called, I think it's the Positive Birth, and then their app is something different. I wish they would have the same name so it would be less confusing, but it counts out, like you just tap it when you're having a contraction and they do the 4-part breaths, counting in 1, 2, 3, 4, exhale. And then when you're like, okay, the contraction's over, you tap it again and it does a soothing meditation of like a guided, like just this comforting voice talking to you. Yep. So
I'm gonna look that up.
It's a good one. And
cool.
I had that in my headphones playing while dinner's cooking. And I did eat because I was like, I want to make sure I like have energy and I don't feel nauseous. So I'm going to just eat a little bit. It was a pretty close call on the ride to the hospital. Not a close call, but like I was having contractions. I was also crying because I was like nervous. I'm like, I'm excited, but I'm like scared and my mom's not here. And it's just so many emotions. So we get to hospital. I remember walking in from the truck to the hospital. I had to stop and like breathe through a contraction. And this woman walks by and she goes, "Oh, good luck, sweetheart." And Dustin's like, that was so rude. Cause like, I don't know, is she being sarcastic or she like genuinely cheering me on? But like, either way, I was
maybe
like,
maybe she had a couple traumatic experiences and she was just salty. I don't know.
It's just, I think people forget when you see a pregnant woman, like you just forget like what they're going through or how to be like a little bit compassionate. So anyways, we go in, they get us right in and I have 2 nurses. One is the nurse and one is, she's doing like an affiliation. I don't know if there's a word for it, but she's still training to, and they're like, okay. And I'm like, I'm having these contractions. This whole time I felt like I had to pee and they let me go. And like, I kind of peed a little bit, but I just like, nothing was really coming out. And I just had this feeling that I had to pee this whole time, which was new to me. I was like, I've never had this before and it's really uncomfortable. So they're like, this is the new nurse. She's on her affiliation and she is going to check you. That's the only way she can learn. Meanwhile, I'm like doing my breathing, trying to like focus. And they're like, so we can check you after. She just has to do it first so she can learn. I'm like, okay, just check me. Just check me. I don't care. So she's like, okay, you're measuring about, and I'm expecting like, I'm probably 5, just like last time. And she's like, you're measuring about just maybe 2 or 3 centimeters. And I was like, no, I was like, so devastated at that. And I didn't want the other girl to follow up because it was just uncomfortable for me to lay down.
Yeah, like, you're just like, get out.
Yes. I'm like, just let me just stand up and move around, which is what I needed to do. So as soon as I heard that, like I lasted like another 20, 30 minutes. So I got to the hospital. What time did I get there? Probably around 5:30. No, 7. It was in the evening because we had dinner and everything. So, it was probably maybe 30 minutes more. I was like, okay, I need an epidural because if I'm only 3 centimeters, like I am not going to make it. Like I totally threw everything out. I was like, cause I wanted to do, no epidural this time. I was like, I got this, but, no, I was like, I didn't have that. Like Justin was great, but I needed someone to like look me in the eyes. And I still tell him this to this day. I'm like, this is what you did wrong. No, but I'm like, I needed someone to like say like, you got this. You are doing great. We got this, like one at a time, one contraction at a time. Like I felt like I couldn't do it for myself. And I had the app playing. I was the only one timing my contractions. And I was like, just get me the epidural. So they order it and we're waiting and I'm timing my contractions. I'm like, they're getting really close together, but I can't even speak that. So I'm like, they're like less than a minute apart. Like like a lot's going on. And now I'm like just in the room with the other nurse and I'm leaning over the bed. They've raised the bed up as high as it can go. It's like chest height almost. And I am like holding on to it, really leaning forward. And actually before that, I was like on the ground on my hands and knees, leaning on a chair. For some reason, that was like the most comfortable thing. And then I was like, I need to stand up. I need to stand. So I'm on the bed now doing it. And I am a loud laborer. Yeah. Very loud. Like,
oh my, it's okay.
Like it just, if I hold that in, it's like, tensing up. So I have to release it and let it out. So I'm like, I'm pretty loud, just like, oh my gosh, this is happening.
Yeah.
And my, those things they put on your belly, the monitors, there was 2, I think. They're falling everywhere. They're not staying on. So the nurse is trying to adjust them while I'm leaning over the bed. Justin's doing the pelvic squeeze thing on my pelvis. And I was like starting to move in this like circular motion, and the pain kind of went away. Like, it sounds weird saying that, but all of a sudden it didn't feel painful, and my body was moving in a circle. Like, my hips were just swinging around, and I'm like, something is happening. And yes, Liesl, I'm telling you, like, it felt like just this crazy release, and her head came out. Her head came out. And mind you, like, we have this affiliate or whatever nurse who's like learning.
And
I
feel so bad for her.
And me. And I'm like, something's happening. And I reached down, but that was like honestly the most beautiful moment of my entire life. I just reached down, I could feel her head. But I was also petrified, like, a baby head in between my legs. Like, I didn't push at all. Like, she was just there. So we're all standing like, oh my God. And the girl's yelling, nurse, nurse. And nobody's at the nurse's station. One is checking on someone. The other one was in the bathroom. So it's just the 3 of us. And she yells to Justin to pull the emergency cord because she didn't know what to do. She's never like caught a baby. So she's like, you have to push. And I did one push, and we all caught her coming out. It was the messiest thing though, because as you can imagine, like, with the other 2, like, Justin didn't know like what comes out, or you don't see it because it all goes into like a bag or something. But like, it was all over my legs. It was all over the floor. Oh my gosh. So like the amniotic fluid, just everything. All over the floor.
It's a mess.
Justin was like petrified, and she was so slippery, and the umbilical cords all wrapped around her. So it was just like insane. And the fact that like I didn't push her out, it was just that one push to get like her shoulders over. Wow. Just like incredible, like the best experience. I
was going to say, how can you even put it into words? How did you feel right after she came out?
I was in shock. I was seriously like, I couldn't believe it. And like the epidural, we were still waiting for it at that time. And I thought I was only 5 centimeters
get one
long.
of those.
Nobody had like, we had no idea that she was coming. Right. Yeah. Like, and then I'm like, did she measure me wrong when she checked me? Right. Like, could that have been it? But it also could have been my body just progressing really quickly.
Either or. Yeah. I mean, she definitely could have. And that's, kind of a reason why I'm like, oh, I wish they hadn't have had I don't know that she was a student. She was an RN, but an RN in training check somebody it's her 3rd pregnancy. She's contracting that much, and she's not trying to get an epidural. Like, this is not the patient that you want to do like a test cervix on. You want to do somebody who's got a nice, comfy epidural, and they're, okay with you checking, and it's not going to be, that
I could have said no, but
number 1.
The former teacher in me, like, I am all about like others get that real world experience. Like, I used to teach at a trade school, so I taught graphic design, and we would have our students work with real life customers, and there was a nursing program at the school too. So I was happy to help her learn, but like you're saying, probably not the best time. So it was just insane. The other nurse finally comes running in, and there's a baby, and she's like, oh my God, get on the bed. Everyone's telling me get on the bed. The bed is chest high. I am like just still frozen. My feet are like planted on the floor. We're like holding this baby, and she is so beautiful. Oh my God. It was like, I just can't, this experience was just magical. If I had to like give it one word, it was magical. And then they get me in the bed. I did not tear at all.
Wow. Yeah.
No tearing. Yeah. There was like a burning sensation when she did fully come out, but I mean, like, I feel like that's kind of normal.
No. Baby,
So it was a beautiful experience. Then the doctor finally came like another 30 minutes later, maybe, to cut the umbilical cord and do all the placenta stuff. But that was my favorite birthing experience by far.
That's amazing. That's so amazing that it feels, a lot of people, if they have an experience that's a little bit traumatic and then they have another experience where it's like more they call it redemptive. So it sounds like you have had more of a redemptive experience this time with Blake. So that is so amazing. So I want to ask too how your recovery was with Blake in comparison to your first two.
So not tearing is a huge difference, like a world of difference, because I didn't have any stitches. My body was all in one piece. It felt like it was just, it was tricky with, being now a mom of 3, but I did have a lot of help, a lot of support. Justin was able to take almost 2 full weeks off. My sister was home visiting. My mom was off. So I did have a lot of help. And it was I almost felt like more, even though it was kind of more chaotic, I felt more at peace and I was able to enjoy it versus I feel like maybe my first time around, I was like rushing to like, okay, I want to get back into my routine. I'm not pregnant anymore. So not even talking about workouts, but like, I just want to, get the clothes folded and I want to do this and that. But this third time I was like, it was very calm and enjoyable. And I was just really soaking it all up. Plus she was born, like I said, July she was born June, but like I had the whole month of July to just chill. And
that's great.
Yeah. So it was really nice. I'm trying to think of anything else that I might be leaving out of like recovery. I did have, more of that anxiety we talked about.
I was going to ask about that. Yeah. When that went away or if it stayed.
When Justin went back to work, I had to call him a few times crying to say like, you need to come home. Like, I can't do this. Cause now Rosie's 2 or no, she wasn't even 2 yet. She was 1.5 or, almost 2. Ayla's still not even 4. And then I have a newborn and I was like, I can't, I would just be so overwhelmed that I felt like I couldn't do anything. So it was tough. I actually started taking a couple different supplements that are for like hormone support and they helped me so much.
That's good.
So between that, just having like a little bit of a hormone balance, and just trying to make sure I take time for myself every day. Some days it would be like a nap at 5 p.m. when he got home from work. And other days it would be like, okay, I'm going to do some stretches in my room alone while the girls are napping. Like I just needed something of my own to do. And maybe it was even like checking in on Instagram. Like I just needed that time to myself for my mental sanity.
Yeah. I love it. Well, we preach that too, is like, you can't be whole and you can't take care of your children and, or, have a nice, healthy, relationship with your spouse unless you put, work into your own self first. So
Absolutely.
Big fan of that. And I totally agree. Well, Kim, thank you so much. This was a whirlwind. I think it's the best way to describe it. I think you scarred the nursing, the new nurse in your delivery, but
she cried. She actually cried. And we took a picture all together because we just were like, it was just the 3 of us, guys. We did it. And that's what gave me, I'm like, you know what? If I did a home birth, I know now I could have done it. Like I didn't have a doctor. Like, yes, she was there, but like we could do this on our own. Like, and it was really empowering. But also just such a special moment. And now if I do have another, it will probably be a home birth because like I said, like I know we can do it.
Love it. Love it. Well, awesome. Well, can you just remind our listeners where they can find you on social media, Instagram, where they can catch up with you if they missed it in the beginning?
Yeah. So I love posting on my stories daily. That's where you'll see me and the girls and my workouts and all the fun stuff. Kim Perry Co is my handle, and I can send you my website as well. That's where I have all my workout programs on there and some other fun stuff going on.
Great. Awesome. Well, we'll link all that stuff in the show notes for people to check out. Thank you so much, Kim, for joining me. This was fun. We had this was long. We got 3 birth stories in here and they were all very different. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing all the details.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right, guys, that wraps up this week's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in and letting me be a part of your motherhood journey. It is truly an honor. If you like what you heard, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And I love hearing what you guys think of the podcast. So if you're liking what you hear or you have a suggestion, I'd be so grateful if you'd go ahead and leave me a review wherever you're listening to help more mamas just like you find the show. That's it for this week on the Mommy Labor Nurse podcast. What do you think? Are you starting to feel a little more confident about your pregnancy and birth? Well, if you want more, be sure to head on over to mommylabornurse.com/podcast for today's show notes and a library of episodes so you can keep getting educated before your upcoming birth. And while you're over there, be sure to check out the blog and learn about our online birth classes. Find it all and more over at mommylabornurse.com/podcast. See you next week, same time, same place.